You always get a happening race when it rains. Let's hope so. You're about to see the Malaysian Grand Prix. Your commentators, Martin Brundle and James Allen. James, what about these conditions then?
Well, it puts us in mind of the race just a few years ago, Jim, when it rained 2 or 3 laps into the race. Remember, on that occasion, Michael Schumacher had to queue behind teammate Rubens Barrichello. The Ferraris were really at 6s and 7s. Everybody in the pits was at 6s and 7s. At least this time, they've got the weather before the start of the race. We're looking out of the window, looking down at the start grid to see if anybody is making a late change to the wet tyres, or indeed if they've already made that change. There's Chris Dyer. He is the chief race engineer for Michael Schumacher, and how often have we seen Schumacher be the master of these changeable conditions, knowing exactly what to do at each particular moment. No question at all that it is raining down here on this wonderful Sepang circuit, whisker over 3.5 miles long. One of the toughest Grand Prix of the year, the longest Grand Prix of the year at just under 200 miles, 56 laps we have in front of us, and how much of that will be rain affected, only time will tell. Certainly throughout the weekend here, it's been dry. Rain has been threatened, but the last time it rained in Kuala Lumpur was on Monday, and this has caught everyone a little bit by surprise, although some showers were forecast for later in the afternoon, Martin.
Well, I've spoken to 2 key members of top teams on the grid, and they both said to me exactly the same thing: a 5% chance of rain passing over early, and they were completely unconcerned about what's coming down. You have to say the track is so hot down there that it's just burning straight off anyway. As regard tyres, you still have to feel that if it's looking at winter testing at least, if it's fully wet, the Bridgestone boys, therefore Ferrari in particular, have an advantage. But if it's sort of medium to nearing dry, we saw in Indianapolis last year, the Michelin runners in those conditions were absolutely flying, and the Ferrari's in serious trouble. So those transient conditions could throw something very interesting into this race.
Well, yesterday in qualifying, we saw the teams egging each other on to run lighter and lighter fuel loads, desperately trying to get themselves onto pole position. And most of the drivers you can see there, we think, are going to make their first pit stop before lap 11. Well, we're joined, I'm delighted to say, from the BMW Williams garage by Sir Frank Williams. Frank, first of all, can you take the fight to Ferrari today?
If it's changing conditions, we may luck into something special. From what we saw in practice, probably not. But Michael has taken a risk, we think, on a very soft tyre. This may be a miscalculation. We're praying it is.
Yes, unfortunately though, Frank, the track's dropped down to just 40 degrees now with that light rain. Will you have spoken to particularly Juan Pablo about lap 1, or do you leave it up to the drivers to make their minds up just how aggressive they're going to be into those first few turns?
Well, I think they're very experienced at curbing their aggression, and it all happens so fast as they go into that corner of cars moving across the road. They must make up their own mind on the spur of the moment.
Will you have a sort of an each-way bet on a strategy if Juan Pablo does clear some of the cars? Because Webber may not have the race pace he's had in qualifying, could hold your boys up. Will you have an each-way bet? Has that been carefully discussed?
I'm sure, like in every team, it's all been very carefully considered and discussed. I'm not familiar with everything they're going to do, but we can normally react to an unfolding situation quite speedily.
Thank you very much, Frank, for joining us. Much appreciated, as always. There you have it then, the views of Frank Williams, boss of the BMW Williams team. Certainly he has had a word, Martin, with both his drivers in terms of what we saw in Australia. The two bumped into each other whilst an overtaking manoeuvre by Montoya was going on, and Ralf Schumacher said some pretty fierce things about his teammate Montoya this weekend, and I know that Frank has had a word with them both just to keep the fight outward of the team, fight the opposition, not each other. There is Montoya, and there are the dry weather tyres that he's going to start this Grand Prix with. As Martin was saying, this track is so hot and it's been dry for so long this weekend that it'll take a heck of a lot of rain in order to moisten this track in the first place. Well, it's been warmer all weekend than normal, 37 degrees pretty consistently, as opposed to the 30 or 32 that we've seen. And with the cars lapping about 4 seconds a lap faster than they did last year, that all adds up to a very tough cocktail and a real test of endurance both for car and machine. You'll see a lot of holes have been cut in the bodywork to keep the cars cool, and the drivers will lose about 3 to 4 kilos of fluid and body weight during the course of this Grand Prix. Many of them have a drinks bottle on board, and the parade lap about to get underway. You can hear the engines revving up. They're going to leave some rubber on their start positions, and away we go on the parade lap.
Yes, everybody starting on used tyres, of course, the tyres that they had to qualify on yesterday. And there then, at the back of the grid, Fernando Alonso, the man who started at the very front last year, had an engine change, and clearly electing then to take up, forcing to take up the back row of the grid. And watching him come through the field today is going to be quite interesting. You have to assume they can't have fueled him up too highly, James, otherwise he'll struggle to pass, as he didn't have great straight line speed anyway. But the car is very good on longer runs, and we're really expecting those two Renaults to be quite menacing towards the second part of each phase of the tyres.
Well, a lot of people were speculating that given his position, Alonso might do what Giorgio Pantano here is doing, and that's start from the pit lane. Obviously, they have the option of putting different tyres on and fueling up the car, but given how good Renault's starts have been, Alonso quite obviously opting that to start from the grid. He can make up 5 or 6 places probably in the first lap, and certainly a great deal of interest for us, I think, all this afternoon is going to be to see how fast Alonso comes through the field to catch up with the rest of the field. Pit tactics going to be absolutely vital today. It's going to be very, very fast and furious stuff. All the cars expected to stop 3 times this afternoon, and that's without a particular big weather change. So in a dry race, we're looking at 3 stops, and an awful lot can happen here this afternoon. And that looks like Raikkonen, who spun it on the parade lap, hopefully kept the engine in.
Well, he's not allowed to regain his position in terms of, well, he may get away there because he hasn't dropped to the absolute end of the pack, so he can filter his way through. If he was right at the back, he'd have to stay at the back, and certainly under the grid regulation. So Raikkonen clearly caught out amazingly with a little bit of dampness out there, maybe, James, something like that. We have had a couple of races on the track. There was a Porsche Super Cup. Maybe there's something out there, but something has caught Kimi Raikkonen out.
And it wouldn't have been at racing speeds that it had that spin. I mean, next time they come through, they'll be going a good bit faster than they will on the parade lap.
Yeah, but curiously, that's easier because the downforce comes into play then. As soon as you're going faster, downforce squares with speed, and the cars actually work better. Sometimes they're actually quite clumsy at these slow speeds, as they're all now trying to get some heat into those rear tyres for a long run down to the first corner. And it has been a slow warm-up lap, so very little temperature in the tyres, so the pressures go down, and therefore you've not got optimum grip in any respect. Raikkonen, I think I saw taking up his proper grid position. So a lot of cars sitting on the line with a slightly unknown racetrack and very little temperature, and temperature is everything to make these cars function.
Well, in Australia, quite a lot of drivers matched their launch control time manually. No launch control now in 2004, and that certainly adds up towards getting down to the first corner as fast as possible. Huge tension in the pits then, the lights going on. When they all go off, we'll be racing around Sepang. 56 laps begin. Now! Oh, Webber's not going anywhere, he's almost stalled. Once again, Webber starts, let him down. The 2 Ferraris in line astern, Montoya 3rd, Raikkonen 4th, and Trulli up to 5th. Jensen Button in the mix. Watch out, Coulthard on the right. Button goes round the outside of Trulli. This is where the accidents have happened the last couple of years, but this year no problems, and Ferrari have control at the front at the moment, but Montoya already up to 3rd.
Yes, poor old Mark Webber, he just did not get away at all. Looked like the clutch was slipping, and didn't get it up and running until he got into second gear. And look, then Jarno Trulli coming through already, so Trulli making ground. Both Renaults starting very quickly, and that's Trulli has passed Button already then. And Michael Schumacher leads Barrichello, Montoya, Raikkonen, now Trulli, Button, Coulthard up to 7.
And poor old Mark Webber's got it all to do. Here at the back, you can see the 2 Minardis having a squabble. And there's a Sauber in the mix as well there, but that was a disaster for Mark Webber. Up the inside comes Webber, though. One of the Saubers he's making a move on, so he's trying to make up for the lost ground at the start.
Yeah, you somehow knew it. He's been talking about it all weekend. If I can get this car off the line. Raikkonen had a big sideways moment coming out of turn 11. The man who's currently in 4th place, but kept it all together. There, it is very, very slippery on the exit of 10. And that is the net result. We're seeing lots of cars struggling for rear grip, under traction, but the leaders safely through.
Well, the Klein in the second Jaguar also had problems. A puff of smoke there into the final corner, but so we think Jaguar's start situation's a bit of a mess. And you can see that the BAR as well making its way through the field. Sato down in 16th place, had to start from the back of the grid. Michael Schumacher leads by 2 seconds on the first lap. Montoya is third, Barrichello second, fourth Raikkonen, fifth Trulli, sixth Button. Here comes Sato trying to make a move on Felipe Massa, who was very, very dynamic yesterday in qualifying, outperforming Fisichella once again.
Alonso already up to 10th place then from the back row of the grid. 19 cars on the grid. Pantano, and look, Barrichello outbraking himself, running wide, lost a lot of time. He'll lose another position to Raikkonen, surely, and that is rain in the background there. It's raining heavily. What about that 5% chance of rain? It seems like it's absolutely hit home, and here we go then. And Michael Schumacher now under pressure from Montoya. This is exactly the situation where the Michelins work best.
Think back to Indianapolis last year. Michael Schumacher had the whole race bought and paid for, except these conditions where it's just beginning to get a glisten on the top of the surface of the track.
And Raikkonen did pass Barrichello, and he's up to third. Barrichello under big pressure. He's on the harder tyre, remember, Barrichello. Michael elected for the softer Bridgestone, which will be paying dividends right now. And all of a sudden, he's just stretching his legs a bit to Montoya too. So Michael Schumacher leads from Montoya, Raikkonen, and there's a McLaren team ready for a pit stop. And a car has spun. I just saw the Mercedes doctor's car zooming down the pit lane, but only to reposition, I would imagine. There's third place Raikkonen. Then it's Barrichello, Button, Trulli, Coulthard, Ralf Schumacher, and then a recovering Webber.
Yep, Webber up to 9th then, having lost all that time at the start. Look at this gaggle coming down the pit straight though. Who's going to make a pass here? Button lined up behind Rubens Barrichello. Does he have the legs? Does he have the guts? No, not this time, but Barrichello clearly struggling. He's on the harder Bridgestone tyre. The cars behind him are on the Michelin. Button and Trulli and Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher as the rain falls heavier here at Sepang.
It is indeed. I thought Ralf Schumacher had passed Coulthard in the background, but he has not done so. There then is the gaggle for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th.
And Trulli past Button there. They're still having a terrific scrap, these two, right from the start. They've been battling right into turn 1. They were side by side. They've passed and now repassed each other. Look at the wiggles though. You see the rain in the foreground. These are very difficult conditions to drive in now.
Well, this is absolutely surprising, the paddock. I didn't speak to anybody that expected rain to seriously affect this Grand Prix. And Button coming back then at Trulli, and he'll do well to get around there, and he has done
Webber and Ralf
well too.
side by side, Martin, sorry to interrupt you, and Ralf up onto the grass.
Yeah, Webber just muscled Ralf Schumacher completely off the road, and that allowed Alonso to pass at the same time. Tremendous stuff going on in the midfield.
And get this, Rubens Barrichello is lapping 5 seconds slower than his teammate Michael Schumacher in the lead. Schumacher's doing 1 minute 40s. The pace we expected was around 1 minute 36, so all of the cars are about 4 seconds slower than they would be in a normal dry condition, but Barrichello is a further 5 seconds a lap slower. Here's the front three: Michael Schumacher, Montoya, Raikkonen, separated by 3.5 seconds, just under 4 seconds now.
Yes, it seems as if it's really just 2 or 3 corners, James, that's really slippery. And look in the background there as Alonso, I think it is, yes. No, it's
Alonso.
Yeah, it is Alonso.
He's made his way up from the back of the grid to challenge and pass Mark Webber for 8th place.
That's a good run down there too. He must have tremendous traction off the last corner because he tends not to have good straight line speed. So the next man in Alonso's sights then is David Coulthard, who's currently running 7th.
Michael Schumacher on lap 4 has a 1.5 second advantage over Montoya. Raikkonen is third now, 5 seconds behind. Raikkonen, his last lap, a couple of seconds slower than Schumacher's. And Martin, here's the start again. That Jaguar not going anywhere.
It just looks like a slipping clutch to me as everybody starts to make their way around the 2 Ferraris. A perfect getaway. Montoya safely into 3rd place. And everybody's super cautious there. Will remember well all of the incidents they've had here in the last few years. And look, this is from on board Alonso. He was last on the grid and just demonstrates how good that car gets away. It's like playing a video game, isn't it? As he zooms down to the first corner. And that is a Webber desperately trying to make up for not getting off the line. Good stuff. And that then is Fisichella getting muscled off the racetrack too. And this is a replay then of Pantano spinning the Jordan. Fisichella dropped down to 17th. with that little off-track excursion.
Here's Alonso lining up David Coulthard now. This the battle for 7th, 8th, 9th. Mark Webber in the Jaguar, the green Jaguar in the mix as well. And behind him, Ralf Schumacher, who had to take to the grass to avoid the Jaguar coming through. This is a great scrap at the start of this Grand Prix. And what about that start of Fernando Alonso? I really hope we see that again. And the car's like a missile off the line. Here comes Ralf Schumacher up the inside of Webber. No love lost here. A little tag, Webber loses ground, and Ralf is through.
I don't know whether they actually touched. They did. He's got a puncture. That he tagged the rear wheel there of Mark Webber, and he's punctured his right rear. He must make a pit stop, and he's got the best part of 5 kilometers to go. Let's hope it doesn't delaminate and smash his rear wing and bodywork to pieces. Ralf Schumacher, I believe, just punctured the right rear there of Mark Webber.
How sharp are those front wing end plates? I mean, we've seen it once or twice a few years ago, but look at the tyre almost coming off the wheel now.
Well, they have to be a certain radius and thickness so that they don't cut the tyre, but of course there's still a lot of energy going on. Michael Schumacher leads by 1.8 seconds and pulling away by over a second on this lap alone at the moment. I think the track's beginning to dry, James, and the drama that's over there in turns 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11, where the cars have been sliding around, clearly is fading away as they're now down into the 1 minute 36s, which is, you'd have to say, normal, expected race pace.
Yeah, this is lap 5. Let's have another look at that. That's the BAR and the Jaguar. That's probably Takuma Sato, I think. Yes, it is indeed.
Yep.
He went off yesterday in qualifying and went right into the sand trap and jeopardised his lap. Had to go start from the back of the grid. So once again, a very eventful weekend for Takuma Sato. Off the track quite a lot. Let's focus though on this great scrap. Coulthard, Alonso and Ralf Schumacher. Webber's no longer part of the picture. And you have to say hats off to Felipe Massa in the Sauber, who's keeping in touch with these guys. A very impressive weekend for Felipe Massa. Out-qualified his teammate Fisichella again, and he's in touch with the big guys.
Yes, Michael Schumacher lapped 1.3 seconds faster than anybody else, as you're looking at now the tyre trying to come off the rim of the Jaguar of Mark Webber. And he was really making some ground there, wasn't he? What a shame for him and for us, really.
So, lap 6, Michael Schumacher leading Montoya now. The gap going out to 3.2 seconds. Raikkonen is 3rd. 4th is Barrichello. 5th Button. 6th Trulli. 7th Coulthard. Then this is the battle here. Coulthard and Alonso, the battle for 7th. Ralf Schumacher is in 9th place. Massa is 10th. Heidfeld is in 11th for Jordan. 12th is De Matter in the Toyota. Klein, we haven't seen him yet in the Jaguar. He's 13th. Fisichella 14th. As into the pits comes Mark Webber, and Ted Kravitz is down there.
The good news about Mark Webber is that I didn't see any damage to the bodywork. They're taking the opportunity to put in a bit of fuel. Poor guy, he hasn't said anything on the radio apart from acknowledging that he's coming in for a stop, but he thinks that the clutch just failed. The anti-stall came in, and then he was just slow off the grid. As for Ralf Schumacher, well, I wouldn't doubt that I'll be having words later.
Well, Mark Webber then, I still think this is a career-defining moment this weekend for him to split the Ferraris on the front row of the grid, and I think it confirmed his potential to a lot of people who already rated him highly. So not all is lost for the man, but he's lost so much time. He was able to refuel though, James, to minimise some of the pain, but he lost too much time coming into the pits. There's a long way to go, and if he puts a charge on, he's still got a chance of some World Championship points.
For sure, the top teams are keeping an eye on him. He's one of the hot tips to get a seat at Williams next year to replace Juan Pablo Montoya. And it was interesting yesterday in the press release that came out from the BMW Williams team that Mario Tyson, the boss of BMW, was making a comment about how well he thought Mark Webber had done. Fairly unusual for a boss of another team to talk about a good effort by one of the rival drivers. Anything to read into that? We will find out. Here's the scrap between Heidfeld, De Matter, Klein. 11, 12 and 13 on the racetrack. This is lap 7.
Michael Schumacher's lead is up to 4.2 seconds now. He's lapping in a 1:34.8. He's blown away the lap record by 1.6 seconds. Such is the pace this afternoon. It's a frantic pace now. Coulthard's just set the fastest first sector time and clearly beginning to find the McLaren. It's Michael Schumacher then from Juan Pablo Montoya's 4.2 seconds behind. Raikkonen, Barrichello 4th, Button 5th, Trulli 6th, Coulthard 7th, Alonso 8th, Ralf Schumacher 9th, and Massa keeping up well in 10th.
the Malaysian Grand Prix at Sepang, and we've got a penalty for car number 14, Mark Webber, for speeding in the pit lane. He had to make an early stop after Ralf Schumacher tagged his rear tyres and punctured it, and he came in for tyres, and obviously on his way out he has gone too fast. There's the confirmation up on your screen. So Webber having to do a drive-through penalty. It's the first one we've seen so far this season. They have a different range of penalties now this year. There's certainly some offences will be meted out afterwards. We've had Fisichella in the pits. He was the first scheduled stopper. Here's Michael Schumacher on lap 9, the first of the big guys to come in for a stop. Just confirming what Martin was saying yesterday, that they had to go with a lighter fuel load to guarantee themselves pole position. Montoya, though, has been holding on much better than qualifying might have suggested, and was only just over 2 seconds behind Schumacher when Schumacher made his pit stop. So this is up to Montoya now. This is where he has to really push hard.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Michael Schumacher went lighter and went softer on the compound of the tyres, and he's, mind you, also in as Coulthard, Alonso and Massa from 8th, 9th and 10th. There is Alonso, the man who started on the back of the grid, went quickly and immediately to P10, but pretty much stagnated in 8th place behind Coulthard and Barrichello in this lap too. So Ted, are you down there?
Excellent work by McLaren. They got him out. They got David Coulthard out ahead of Fernando Alonso. They were very tight anyway. Alonso might have nicked it there, but McLaren have kept station. Good job.
Yes, they've had to practice this pit in because it's quite clever in that final turn. You take an entirely different line into the last corner when you're pitting, and you can gain, you can almost ignore the corner and gain yourself a second or two on the way into the pits and minimise the pain of stopping here. So that clearly both Coulthard and Alonso got that right, and the teams got them out in their respective positions. Michael Schumacher has rejoined, but Montoya then leads the Grand Prix and was quite nicely hanging on, wasn't he?
He certainly was. His last lap, a 1:36.389. These are the laps he needs to make count if he's to retain the lead when he makes his own pit stop. They're out of sequence now, him and Michael Schumacher. And coming through, you can see Montoya leading. There is Ralf Schumacher. There is Michael Schumacher. Then he's fed in behind his brother into 7th place. And there's Rubens Barrichello making his stop, the second of the McLarens, Kimi Raikkonen in 2, and so is Jarno Trulli on lap 11. Montoya still out on track though, and his last lap was good, a 1:36.1, but not as fast as Michael Schumacher was doing before the stops.
That's very good news. Montoya then had about 2/10 at least more fuel on board as well, and was managing to keep Schumacher in. And look at that then, Trulli getting out ahead of Barrichello. That's a position reversal then. Renault managing to get Trulli out in front of the Ferrari.
It's just not quite happened for Rubens Barrichello this weekend at any stage, has it? He's taken a tactical decision to run with the harder Bridgestone tyre and run a little bit more fuel than his teammate, and he paid the price with that in qualifying down in 3rd place with Michael Schumacher on pole. And here again today, he's lost out in the pit stop battle. He is down now to 5th place.
Well, there was this feeling that Rubens had played a smart hand going for these harder tyres, but the track is a full 10, 11 degrees cooler than it has been. And really, Michael Schumacher is not a 6-time world champion because he chooses the wrong tyres.
Well, the other man going very well at the moment is Jenson Button. We haven't seen him, but he's in 2nd place, just under 8 seconds behind Montoya. And once again, BAR showing that their jump in performance over the winter is no mirage. They were been quick in Australia. They're quick here, particularly in race conditions, it seems. Button lapping in the mid-135s. He's half a second a lap faster than Montoya at the moment. Jenson Button now is definitely coming into contention in this race.
Nick Heidfeld temporarily up in 8th place in the Jordan, going well in a championship scoring position at the moment because he hasn't pitted. But I tell you something, if Montoya or Button are on a 2-stopper, then as Ralf Schumacher pits and Ted is down there.
Yeah, Ralf in from 6th place. They're going to add some front wing. He's been having a bit of graining on the tyres, so they're putting a bit of front wing, bit more front downforce. Good stop though. Where's that going to come out? I think he'll maintain 6th.
Yes, indeed. So Montoya then still leading the Grand Prix. I was just beginning to say, if Montoya or Button are on a 2-stopper, they're looking very, very strong. We're on lap 12.
Yes, if you bear in mind, it's now 2 laps since Michael Schumacher made his pit stop. You need about 3 kilos of fuel for every lap here, and well, it's starting to look better and better in terms of the competitiveness of this Williams package. They didn't look that clever in qualifying yesterday, but we're beginning to find out why. Certainly through the longer runs in free practice, this Williams has looked very fast indeed, as has the Renault, if either Trulli or Alonso could just get themselves up there into some free air.
Montoya is 16.9 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, who was racing with. And we think, Ted tells us, he thinks he's coming in this lap. If he bolts down the pit lane, we'll know for sure, and indeed he does. And that is not enough time then to put him in front of Michael Schumacher when he comes out. So that's interesting. I don't think Montoya's got enough in the bag to lead the Grand Prix. In fact, he hasn't had particularly quick laps. No. Button pits too. Button in the pits from second.
If he's not careful, Montoya, he'll feed back out behind his teammate Ralf Schumacher as well. So the last couple of laps, not fantastic. That was a very quick stop, though, for Montoya. 6.3 seconds by the Williams team. There is BAR as well, servicing Button. Where will he feed back into the equation? Michael Schumacher is, we haven't seen him, but I think he must have crossed the start-finish line to retain the lead. There is Jenson Button. And Montoya was 2 seconds behind Michael Schumacher before this round of pit stops. Oh, almost a clash there between Trulli and Button. And these two have been stuck together all Grand Prix. Now they're together again. Trulli resists. Button has to give way. No choice there, otherwise he'd lose part of his front wing. And once again, these two join battle on the racetrack.
Good stuff from Trulli. I thought he had overcooked it, but he mugged Button. Jenson really didn't have anywhere to place his car and was a little bit caught by surprise as he exited the pits. Your mirrors are looking pretty much down the pit lane rather than down the racetrack, and you can have some nasty surprises, particularly as the closing speed is something like 100 miles an hour between you exiting the pits and those drivers flat chat coming down the pit straight on the track itself.
Well, I said the Renault was quick. Currently fastest man on the racetrack is Jarno Trulli. He's going faster than Michael Schumacher. He's going faster than Kimi Raikkonen. The lap times are pretty similar. We're into the meat of the race now. The order, Michael Schumacher is leading the Grand Prix. Montoya has fed back in second place. Jenson Button has fed back in fifth behind Jarno Trulli, with Kimi Raikkonen in third place at the moment. Last year's Grand Prix winner here in Malaysia.
Poor old Mark Webber's about to be lapped. There's no point in him buying a lottery ticket today. He's had a failed start, and he got into mischief as he was coming through the pack. Some very aggressive driving that was a pleasure to watch, and then got tagged by Ralf Schumacher. Had to make a pit stop for a new tyre, and in doing so committed a speeding offence in the pit lane and had to make another drive through. So nothing working out for Webber at all. And Ralf Schumacher appears to have slipped back down to 10th. I thought he may have leapfrogged a few cars in there, James, but hasn't done so at all. So it's Michael Schumacher from Montoya by 6.4 seconds. After Michael's stop and his in and out laps, he was much quicker than Juan Pablo Montoya. Raikkonen third. Trulli then is fourth. Button fifth. Barrichello sixth. Sato is seventh, but has yet to stop. Coulthard 8th. Alonso 9th. Ralf Schumacher 10th.
Montoya's on a charge. He took less fuel on in that first round of pit stops than did the rest. He was only stationary for just over 6 seconds, but both Schumacher brothers took on well over 8 seconds worth of fuel. And certainly Montoya using this second phase of the race then to attack the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. He lost ground to him. He lost 4 seconds in total through that first pit stop sequence, but he's really on the attack now. Fastest man on the racetrack. There's your race leader, Michael Schumacher, looking in his mirrors to see Mark Webber, who is a lap down, having had to do a drive-through penalty. And there is second place man Juan Montoya, with Kimi Raikkonen third in the McLaren, and he is lapping, well, he's lapping slightly faster than Michael Schumacher as well. Schumacher's pace at the moment, not fantastic, you'd have to say.
Absolutely. Montoya's about to take a second out of him. In fact, he takes 1.8 seconds out of Michael Schumacher's lead. It's now down to 4.6 seconds, and it's a new lap record for Juan Pablo Montoya. Very much enjoying this fresh set of Michelin tyres after his first of 3 pit stops this afternoon. Lots of action to come here.
Certainly is. Trulli and Button still duking it out for 4th and 5th places. There they are. You can see them, but actually Button's just lost a little bit of ground now. A little puff of smoke out of the back of that car. And once again, Martin, you have to say tremendous reliability from these cars. It's a one-engine formula now. You're only allowed to use one engine during the Grand Prix weekend. And hats off to all the engine builders. They've managed to make these engines much more durable and last a whole Grand Prix weekend. And they haven't lost any power at all. These cars lapping 4 seconds faster than they did last year, thanks to the advances in tyres and aerodynamics and chassis design, and no loss of power at the time of finding all this extra reliability. We haven't got any retirements so far, would you believe, and we're half an hour into the hottest and toughest Grand Prix of the season.
Yes, there's a good fight going on. Coulthard, Alonso and Ralf Schumacher. There's just over a second between the three of them as they're fighting over 7th, 8th and 9th. Sato has now pitted in the PAR and dropped himself out of that little squabble. Again then, let's have a look at Montoya's lap so far. He's about 1 or 2 tenths up this time only. And did he lose time passing Webber in the background there? Webber really going round quite slowly now, as if he's got some kind of problem.
Yeah, he did. He lost 1.5 seconds Montoya behind Webber there, so his lap was only 0.4 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher's, and that's all he was able to nibble out of Schumacher's advantage. The gap now 4.2 seconds. Here is the scrap that Martin was talking about. Great stuff. Coulthard, Alonso and Ralf Schumacher. And Alonso, I think, seems to have sort of settled into a rhythm behind Coulthard. I wonder whether he feels he could lap quicker. He's doing mid to high 1:36s, and certainly the Renault was going quicker than that in the free practice sessions on its long runs.
Yes, so Montoya did reduce the lead of Michael Schumacher's down to 4.2 seconds now, and we're looking at this scrap for 7. Such is the level of competitive quality in the top 10 this afternoon. Michael Schumacher leads by 4.2 from Montoya. Raikkonen holding station in 3rd, Trulli up to 4th, Button 5th. Barrichello struggling on those hard tyres in 6th place.
Lap 18 of the Malaysian Grand Prix from Sepang. Michael Schumacher leading by only 3.4 seconds now from Juan Montoya, who continues to eat into the lead of the Ferrari. This second stint is definitely advantage Montoya. He lost ground over the course of the pit stops. He stopped 3 laps later than the Ferrari, which is very encouraging for the competitiveness of this season as one of the Minardis gets a little bit wild. It shows the Williams is a very competitive package, certainly in these high temperatures. At the moment, he's eating into the lead of Michael Schumacher. Raikkonen is 3rd, 4th is Trulli, 5th Button, and 6th Rubens Barrichello, who with Coulthard, Alonso and Ralf Schumacher locked in a battle for 7th, 8th and 9th behind them.
Yes, Coulthard's pulling away from Alonso now. Alonso's got horrendous understeer in the slow corners on with his Renault, but this man truly has clearly not. He's reeling in Kimi Raikkonen, and with Montoya, he's been doing the fastest laps of the race by some margin. So truly, really in the sweet spot with this car setup and this particular set of tyres as he challenges Raikkonen for third place, and Button just 1.7 seconds behind them with a grandstand seat.
And Louise has some news from us in the pits.
Yes, I'm down at Jordan at the moment. Bit of a frustration down here. We saw Nick Heidfeld earlier on, really in the mix, battling it out. Got as high as 8th place, in fact, before he came in for this first pit stop. His fuel rig failed, so he had to go out again. Luckily, he still had enough on board that he could do another lap, come back into the pits, and the team have used the spare rig, but it has dropped him way down to 17th place.
Bad news for Heidfeld. He was going very well indeed. Michael Schumacher's lead now down to 3.3 seconds. Montoya has taken time out of him on every lap since he rejoined after the first pit stop.
I tell you what though, this Renault of Jarno Trulli is a quick car, and it's currently being held up by Kimi Raikkonen. The lap times now in the mid 1 minute 36s. That Renault has shown when he was in a bit of clear air he could do 35s quite comfortably, and that would put him in a very competitive standing if he could just get past the McLaren, because the two leaders, Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya, are lapping in the low 1 minute 36s, and there's the Renault. It doesn't look like he's being held up, but he's obviously sitting back a bit, is he, Martin, just so he doesn't get too hot getting the exhaust from the back of the McLaren.
Well, I noticed also that Alonso was choosing not to follow Coulthard down the straight. He was a car wide of him. You wonder if the Renaults are struggling with some form of engine oil or water temperature problem or brakes. Let's have a look at Ralf Schumacher then, locking a wheel into the last turn and running quite wide, cost himself a half a second. And here we go, he came in from an unusual angle, and if that's, yes, it is another shot of the same incident. So he was effectively turning right as he approached the left-hander, and it unsettled the car. There's Barrichello then. He chose the harder tyre, and it has not paid off for him at all. And of course, under the regulations, he cannot change that. That decision was made on Friday evening, effectively, and that is it. You're then locked into that decision for the rest of the weekend as to which of the two types of dry weather tyre you're going to use.
Looking back then from the car of Kimi Raikkonen to the Renault of Jarno Trulli, a little bit slow out of turn 2 and 3 there, Jarno Trulli. I was talking at the beginning about how a lot of the teams have cut extra holes in the bodywork of their cars compared to what you would see in other Grand Prix in cooler climates, shall we say. I know for a fact that Renault have 13 holes, extra holes in their car, just to try and keep all the water and the engine and the oil as cool as possible. They've got more ducts and holes than just about anybody else. It certainly has been a concern, and clearly from the defensive way that they're driving, try not to get too hot behind the cars that they're following. Both Alonso and Trulli are stuck behind McLarens at the moment. It's a sign of how competitive Renault are, but the McLarens at the moment are holding them up.
Well, we've had a swap around at the front though. All of a sudden Michael Schumacher is starting to stretch his lead back out again, and he's also 3/10 up on the current lap too in the first two sectors. So has Montoya overcooked his tyres?
Well, that's an interesting question. We're riding on board with Jarno Trulli then. In the Renault, you can see just making a few little adjustments with his left hand on the steering wheel. 18,000 RPM available. He's just got the revs turned down a little bit at the moment, it looks like to me, because he's gone into the pits.
Yeah,
probably why.
That was what I was telling you about earlier on, in terms of you can really gain some time by steaming through the last corner, knowing you're not anticipating making the apex. Ted is down there.
Yeah, and this is Renault and Pat Simmons trying to do one over on McLaren. Jarno Trulli comes in, I believe it's about 2 laps early. Let's see how much fuel he puts in the car. Should be about 7 seconds. We're talking 46, 47 kilograms. It's quite long. There he goes. What's the time? 8 seconds dead. Let's see what happens when Raikkonen comes in.
Plenty of fuel went in there then, as Ted pointed out, and Trulli will get out into some reasonably clear air as well, which is good news for him. So that could work out. Now he's got to sprint, he's got to go for it, and we don't always see Jarno Trulli doing that, but this is one of his days. Today he's racing well. Sometimes we see him absolutely out there at sea somewhere, but if Trulli can sprint hard now, he has a great chance of passing Raikkonen for third place. We'll watch his lap times.
We believe his next pit stop's going to be in 15 or 16 laps time, depending on how much fuel he still had left in the car. He put just under 50 kilos of fuel in at that stop. And we're looking at a nice aerial shot of the Ferrari then. Michael Schumacher leading this Grand Prix, just under 4 seconds from Montoya. Raikkonen third, now over 10 seconds behind the Ferrari. Button is fourth, fifth is Trulli, sixth is Barrichello. Is Schumacher going to pit this time round? He was one of the earliest to pit first time round. No, doesn't look like it.
And I don't see McLaren out in the pit lane, out of the commentary box window here, James, responding to that move by Renault. They've obviously decided to go to their full quota of fuel for this, the second phase of the race out of the 4 with the 3-stopper we're expecting this afternoon.
Well, Michael Schumacher's last lap of 1:35.9 really put Montoya in the shade on this very hot day here in Sepang. He has now taken almost another second off Montoya. He's 4.6 seconds clear now, and this is Schumacher reacting after a slightly difficult start to this second stint. Now the Ferrari driver, but what's that white stuff on his left front tyre? Just a bit of paint, I think.
Yeah, Michael making some adjustments in the car. I believe he adjusted the brake balance. You can change the bias of the percentage of the brake energy, the brake pedal energy that goes to the front and the rear of the car, and you can also manually change the differential as you go. And there he goes again with his right hand, adjusting something down there. Webber's running 19th and cruising around some way off the pace. Either he's got a problem or he's fed up for the afternoon and really everything's working against him, not a lot of point in chasing. But it's a shame if that is his position. I'd be surprised, but at the moment Webber just cruising around at the back.
This is the scrap between Coulthard and Alonso. It's been going on since the pit stops, and it was a second a lap slower than the guys at the front. That may well have been part of the reason. They were getting past some traffic, but Coulthard and Alonso not matching the pace of the cars up in front of them on that last couple of laps. Now they're free of the Minardi and they can attack again, and terrific scrap. Just love that corner, the way the car runs out wide, bounces and then changes direction. It's great illustration of just how amazingly supple and dynamic a Formula One car is, and just imagine what it would feel like on your neck and on your arms, just a quick flick-flack right and left going through that 12-13 complex. Into the final corner then, lap 23, Michael Schumacher leading over 5 seconds now from Montoya. Raikkonen third, Button fourth, Barrichello fifth, and here comes sixth and seventh, Coulthard and Alonso.
Yes, I mean, they're chasing hard, and effectively it's for the small points, isn't it, at the moment, incredibly. And we thought Alonso might be higher up than this, although he, of course, did start at the back of the grid. He's not made much ground since. Those two are lapping in the traffic in the late 1 minute 36s. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher's just done a 1 minute 35.4 and stretched his lead to 5.5 seconds. Montoya shot his bolt on this set of tyres, no doubt about it. We were going to look at Jarno Trulli's times. It's a 1:35.8. Raikkonen did a 1:36.1, and although they're not together on the racetrack, they are effectively racing each other because Trulli has already stopped and he pulled 3/10 out of him on that lap. So at the moment, Trulli is in shape for a good run at passing Raikkonen.
Well, let's just analyse what happened after that first round of pit stops, Martin. We saw Michael Schumacher initially quite slow, but we know he's on the softer Bridgestone tyre. Do you think it was just that intelligence, that racing brain of Schumacher's, knowing he didn't want to monster the tyres too much in the early stages because he needed them for the whole duration of his stint, whereas Montoya, perhaps in his eagerness, has over-egged his tyres in the early stages of this stint?
Now, I did hear that those softer Bridgestones were a bit of a gamble to some extent for Michael, and that they did fade away after 3 laps, grained up, and then came back in a longer run later. So it looks as if that's exactly what's happened. He was struggling in the beginning, and now they're really coming to him. Maybe as the rubber's wearing down a bit, there's less rubber moving around, they tend to run a little bit cooler, and it seems then that the tyre comes into a very nice zone. All of the people in the grandstand in front of me, and look, this is then Alonso and David Coulthard for position into the corner for 7th then, and 6th rather, as that Alonso's taken over. The crowd are on their feet in the grandstands. They saw that one coming up.
Well, now we'll be able to see whether this Renault is indeed faster than the McLaren, as we were suspecting it might be. Can Alonso put some daylight between himself and the McLaren of David Coulthard, who pushes as hard as anybody in Formula One in a race condition? He really is a superb racing driver, Coulthard, but he's only limited by his machinery. Let's see what he can do.
I think he's got a problem. He's lapping now in the 1:37s and quickly fading away from the back of Alonso there. So, because he was a full second clear, so something happened in that last lap and enabled Alonso to get right with him. We're on board with Coulthard. Can we see or hear anything? On all 10 cylinders at the moment. There's your race leader, Michael Schumacher, by 6.3 seconds it was. And now it's 7.4. That's how long it's going to take Montoya, in your view there, to get into the turn one that Michael's already passed through. Raikkonen's third. Let's see, he's done a 1:36.1, and we'll wait for Trulli's time again. But at the moment, Trulli's just about matching Raikkonen. It'll be very equal when Raikkonen makes his second stop. Alonso in, Coulthard in. So at the moment, Coulthard then, no smoke, nothing coming out of it. Maybe he got wrong-footed somewhere or made a mistake. This is a straight race between the two teams then as to who can get their man on the racetrack first. Coulthard having just lost out to the young Spaniard before they came in. Coulthard's away, and they're doing a longer fill on the Renault, a very long fill, as they did with Jarno Trulli. Is this smart work from the Renault team to stretch this phase of the Grand Prix? Coulthard then back in front.
Well, what do we know about this Renault? We know that it's very, very quick on long runs. We also know that it's the most gentle on its tyres of all of the Michelin runners. Clearly, Pat Symonds, who was for a couple of years back in the mid-90s the engineer of Michael Schumacher and saw him to 2 World Championships with the Benetton team, he's the tactical brain on the wall at Renault, and he clearly feels that his 2 cars can go an awful long way and keep the pace up with the fuel without destroying the tyres. And it's a very big tactical gamble, because there's an awful lot of cars who are very competitive turning the same sort of lap times this afternoon. Really, all of the top 9 cars are as fast as each other, with possibly the Ferrari a little bit quicker at the front of Michael Schumacher. So it's a big gamble by Symonds. Let's see if it works for him, as into the pits comes Kimi Raikkonen from 3rd place. Jenson Button now takes over 3rd place from him.
Yes, this is quite crucial then for McLaren, and Ted is down there.
Well, this is the battle with Jarno Trulli, as you remember. Now, David Coulthard added 2 holes of front wing on his stop. Nothing for Kimi Raikkonen. They're very slow getting the hose up. Just a bit of a hesitation, but that might make the difference.
Mark Webber off the track. Looks like he's stuck in the gravel while Ted was talking. And a really horrible afternoon for Mark Webber after the joy of yesterday. There's the scrap between the 2 Renaults, and there is Trulli. He is behind Raikkonen. He rejoins behind Raikkonen. No great surprise there, because Raikkonen was ahead of him on the racetrack going into these stops. Jenson Button, though, is certainly gained from that. He is ahead of the McLaren now.
So the early stop then for Trulli didn't work, but because he had a long run, he's got a longer run here, may pay for him in this stage. Louise has some news about Mark Webber, who you're watching spinning off the racetrack.
Well, I'm just wondering if that was a bit of frustration on Mark Webber's part. You mentioned earlier on that his times had slowed down quite a lot. The team were worried. They thought he might have a problem. He'd done that long lap on a flat tyre. But in fact, he radioed in to say, no, the car was fine. He was just getting a lot of blue flags, having to move out of the way. He was then stuck behind Jean-Marie Bruni, who he just got past. His lap times were picking up. He'd just done his quickest sector of the race. And as I say, he's then spun off.
Well, here comes the battle for the lead then. Michael Schumacher is in, and we saw Juan Montoya in on the same lap as well. That's an early stop by Schumacher. They took on very different amounts of fuel, these 2, so slightly surprising they should pit on the same lap, but they rejoin at the same time, and it's the length of time it takes to get out of the pits is the difference between them. It was 9 seconds before this pit stop. Let's see what it's done for Montoya at the end of this lap. We'll see what the gap is between them.
Yes, and Jenson Button, you can see just coming out of the pit lane, also chose that moment for his second stop of the afternoon, but Michael Schumacher had stretched it, as you said, to 9.3. Button feeds in front of Kimi Raikkonen then. Raikkonen's had his second stop, and that is very significant. That is for position.
Not just for position, for podium. The elusive podium that Jenson Button has failed so far to get. In his 67 Grand Prix, he's come close on several occasions, not least here. If you remember a couple of years ago in the Renault, he was almost going to get a podium, and then on the last lap, he lost 2 places. Last year, he was competitive here again with BAR, and he is currently in 3rd place, having made the same number of stops as the 2 cars in front of him.
Well, we didn't see it on screen, but we heard Ted talking about it. Raikkonen was slow getting away from a normal pit stop, and that's allowed Jenson Button up into 3rd place.
Well, another superb drive then by young Jenson Button. Had a very relaxing holiday in Koh Samui in Thailand after the Australian Grand Prix. Arrived here looking super relaxed and very calm and really up for the fight. He really is enjoying himself as team leader at BAR now. An awful lot of people in the paddock trying to put him in a Williams next year, but he's saying, hey, I'm not going anywhere if it carries on, BAR carries on making this kind of progress. You know, we're racing Williamses for position. At the moment, he's in front of one Williams and behind the Williams of Montoya.
Yeah, it's a net third place, of course, because some drivers have yet to stop for their for the second time this afternoon, including the current race leader, Rubens Barrichello. He's yet to stop, and so Button is not fully in that third place yet, but he will be very shortly when it all shakes out after they've all stopped for the second time.
Absolutely. So 29 laps remaining, almost. And that is the order. Rubens Barrichello only made one stop this afternoon, just a couple of seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. We haven't yet seen what kind of lap times Schumacher's doing since that pit stop, but certainly Montoya was 0.3 of a second faster on his outlap. That's twice now coming out of the pits that Montoya has been quicker than the reigning world champion, who likes to think he specialises really in being the man of the outlap. Someone's blown though. Is that one of the Williams? I think it might be Ralf Schumacher. Yellow helmet certainly would. Yes, it is. Ralf Schumacher then. The first major engine failure for BMW Williams in a Grand Prix this season. And what frustration for him.
Well, that's a rare occurrence these days, and Louise is with Mark Webber.
Yeah, with a slightly frustrated Mark Webber. I mean, if it could go wrong today, it did, didn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Very difficult to get the car away, and then Ralph drove into the back of me, gave me a puncher, because he was pissed off that I passed him. So, and then I got a drive-through penalty, and then I spun.
I was speculating that maybe you were pushing hard. I know you've been frustrated, stuck behind back markers. Is that what caused you to spin, trying to get back on the pace?
No, I had a lot of rear tyre wear, so the car was quite difficult in braking. So, but it's my fault. I got to drive to those conditions, so unfortunate for the team. But we'll be back. We'll keep learning.
Bad luck.
Significant pit stops going on, and Barrichello, I think, has just got ahead, and we're seeing a replay then of Ralf Schumacher. Very rare occurrence under these new regulations of a blown up engine, and we're on board with Massa, who's trying to lap a Minardi, going around the outside and giving it, what are you up to? But anyway, at least he's got the car to do that with today, but he's down in what is now 10th now that Ralf Schumacher's dropped out of the race. Meanwhile, Montoya's just smashed his own lap record one more time with a 1:34.2, and we're going to see another phase then where he starts bringing the gap down to Michael while he's got some life in those tyres. The trouble is, if he takes it so early, if he takes the grip so early, then they'll fade away more quickly.
So Jenson Button now has, as we say, the net third place. He's got the actual third place now in the field after the pit stop of Rubens Barrichello. Michael Schumacher still leading this Grand Prix, but the fastest man on the racetrack, as we just heard, is Juan Montoya. Is he pushing his tyres too hard? We'll find out in a minute. into the second half of the Malaysian Grand Prix at Sepang, and you're riding on board with race leader Michael Schumacher, whose Ferrari engine is revving, as you can see, up to about 19,000 RPM. If I tell you that your Mondeo at home would blow itself apart at about 6,000 RPM, you get an idea of just how clever and sophisticated these racing engines are. It's been an eventful Grand Prix so far. Mark Webber, from second on the grid, had a very poor start and dropped right back through the field. Michael Schumacher, though, was quicker once the tyres settled down than Juan Pablo Montoya. First round of pit stops, Montoya seemed to be very, very quick in the initial stages, but then he perhaps overused his tyres in the first couple of laps and had to drop back from Michael Schumacher. The gap has been more or less 5 or 6 seconds. They've had the second round of pit stops. Once again, we've seen Montoya very, very fast in the initial stages of this stint, but now Michael Schumacher beginning to respond, although Montoya again took another second out of Michael Schumacher on that lap. The gap down to 5.1 seconds. But will the same pattern emerge? Has Montoya damaged the tyres in doing that? There he is at the back of your screens. That is the top 8. And Jenson Button, I'm delighted to say, is going like a train in third place. His nearest rival is Kimi Raikkonen, who's 2.5 seconds behind him in the McLaren, and at the moment is not on the pace of Jenson Button, who's comfortable in third place.
Ted has some news on Ralf Schumacher, who's retired.
Just went into Williams. They've had no warning lights on the telemetry, no flashing red lights. They do think it's an engine failure too, but it went so quickly. It happened so quickly. It could have been caused by something else, electronics or hydraulics. We'll find out soon.
Yeah, so Ralf Schumacher then one of only 2 people to retire from this Grand Prix, the other being Mark Webber. Webber didn't get off the start line, had some kind of problem with the clutch and didn't get away, fell back through the field, came aggressively back through, was tagged by Ralf Schumacher and had a right rear puncture. On changing that puncture, was speeding through the pit lane and had to do a stop and go, and then finally has spun off the racetrack. Dismal afternoon for Webber, and now of course Ralf Schumacher. Michael Schumacher has led the race from the start at the moment, but we've got a pattern emerging. In the early laps, each time they put a set of tyres on, we're expecting them to 3-stop today using a total of 4 sets of tyres. Then Montoya's come back at him very quickly in the opening laps of each stint. But then Michael, playing a bit of a cat and mouse game, and certainly a very mature piece of driving, is just keeping his tyres intact until a little later on he then presses it a bit harder and opens up the gap before the next round of pit stops. Yeah, you're watching the Ferrari lapping a Minardi, and Michael and the Minardi basically frightening itself off the road.
Fastest man on the racetrack at the moment is Jenson Button in third place, and Martin's talking there about the intelligence of Michael Schumacher, just preserving these tyres. Look at the smoke, the brake dust pouring off the wheels as Schumacher applies the brakes on the Ferrari. That's Rubens Barrichello, I beg your pardon, as Barrichello applies the brakes on that Ferrari. We're talking about the intelligence of Michael Schumacher just preserving these tyres, and once again, it's very much an illustration of that here this afternoon. What Montoya has to do then is get to try and stay within 3 or 4 seconds of Michael Schumacher into the third and final round of pit stops this afternoon, and then he might have half a chance of attacking him in the early stages of the final stint of this Grand Prix. Just the challenge of the Renaults, Martin, seems to have faded a little bit, doesn't it? Trulli now lapping in the 37s in 6th place, and Alonso in 9th place, lapping in the mid 1 minute 38. So Renault have really faded in this second half of the race.
Well, they fat fueled the car, didn't they? We saw them put a full 8 seconds of gas in at the stops, and Alonso absolutely nowhere at this stage. A full 3 seconds a lap away from the ultimate pace, and drop back to 9th. You're right, Trulli down in 6th. Beginning to be caught by Coulthard, who's 7th, and the man on the move also in the middle of the pack is Barrichello, who's beginning to close down 4th place man Raikkonen too. So at the moment, both BAR Hondas in the points then. Button 3rd, Sato now up to 8th and comfortably ahead of 9th place man Alonso. Sato only having stopped once so far this afternoon, and of course started from the back of the grid, so clearly they opted to put a bit more fuel in it.
Well, Alonso too started from the back of the grid and was up in very, very quickly into 7th place and battling with David Coulthard for that 7th place. We saw him put 13 seconds worth of fuel into that Renault at the second stop as Nick Heidfeld goes past us very, very slowly down the main straight, the car spluttering and coughing. So I think Jordan has got some problems. There he is. You can see him going very slowly. Alonso just jinks around him. But even so, despite the fact Alonso's carrying all this fuel, 1:38.3 is his lap time, and it's not really the kind of pace you'd expect.
It's got all the hallmarks of a car that's running out of fuel, has Heidfeld. We've already heard from Louise. They had a problem refueling the car at the stop. He had to come back in again. I wonder if they got enough in. He seems to be just scooping up enough to be getting around, or it could also be an electrical problem, but it does have, as I say, the hallmarks of a car short of petrol.
Michael Schumacher has halted the charge of Juan Montoya then in this stint. He's reversed it, and he is now faster. He was faster on that last lap, but Montoya, just as soon as I say that, they crossed the start-finish line, and Montoya's taken another half-second bite out of the lead. It's under 5 seconds. And Montoya does not appear to have done the tyres too much damage. Michael Schumacher not able to go any faster than a 1:36 at the moment, and there's no traffic that you can see there that's holding him up. So is this the turning point of the Grand Prix, I wonder? Is this where Montoya now starts to really attack Michael Schumacher?
Yes, we're not even halfway yet, so lots of action, and Montoya very much keeping Michael Schumacher honest this afternoon. Good news. And Button is about 10 seconds adrift of Montoya, so not really in a challenging position, but certainly lapping very nicely.
Well, in fact, he is lapping in the same pace as race leader Michael Schumacher, while Montoya is a good half-second faster. Kimi Räikkönen is fourth, 20 seconds behind race leader Michael Schumacher, and 3.5 seconds now behind Button, so he's being dropped by the BAR, and Barrichello is fifth, Trulli is sixth, as we ride on board with the struggling Jordan.
That's rather strange. He didn't go into the pit lane, so clearly it's not fuel, it's some other kind of problem. Heidfeld did a 2:06, though he's a half a minute off the pace. Not really a lot of point in carrying on, son. I'd have thought he'd have stopped and asked them to fix whatever it is. There's no point in lapping half a minute away. You'll lose all tyre temperature and you're going nowhere really. That's very strange.
Well, we've got 21 laps, you can see at the top there, that's the counter board. 21 laps remaining out of 56, one of the new graphics for this year. We're certainly enjoying the coverage we're getting from FOM television. Very nice pictures, lots of onboards, really well directed as well. And this graphic telling you that it's 21 laps to go then in the Grand Prix. And I can tell you that Michael Schumacher has again lost ground to Juan Montoya. Probably getting past that Minardi, I would imagine, contributed to it. Now Montoya has to get past it as well. But that is the gap between them. The lowest it's been at any stage in this Grand Prix was 2.2 seconds before the first round of pit stops. Schumacher was able to eke it out a bit to 6 or 7 seconds, but now it is back to just 4.4 as into the pits comes Takuma Sato in the BAR from 8th place.
Second stop of the afternoon then. He's on a different strategy to the others. And a total of at least 21 men going to work to change the 4 tyres, clean out the radiator ducts and refuel the car. And nozzle slow in coming off there, but he wasn't under pressure from Alonso, who was a full 16 seconds behind him in 9th place. Sato then looking at a possible World Championship point this afternoon. His teammate Button, who ran 3rd here last year until cruelly robbed right at the end with a suspension problem and tyres going away. Jenson Button up in 3rd place in the sister BAR as Montoya skims around the outside of the final turn. The gap was 4.4 seconds. It is now 4.5 seconds. Are we seeing exactly the same thing again, where Michael now just starts to stretch it out? You have to say, Montoya's seemed to have been stronger, longer in this stint, doesn't he?
He does, but the tremendously encouraging thing for this Grand Prix season is that he is on the same pace throughout this Grand Prix as the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. There's no question Schumacher is pushing as hard as he can and as hard as he dare, and the same can be said for Juan Montoya, and they are matched for speed. And a very different story from what we saw 2 weeks ago in Australia, as Heidfeld finally brings the stricken Jordan into the pits.
I suspect they asked him to carry on the racetrack while they were looking at the telemetry to see if they could understand what the problem was and have a fix for it. If it's a change of the steering wheel, change of the EC, the electronic control unit, or the gearbox control unit, and maybe that's why they asked him to pot around till they've had a bit more time.
Well, I was talking about the Renaults, the challenge of the Renaults. They put a lot of fuel in the last round of pit stops. They've started to pick the pace up again now. Jarno Trulli lapping the same sort of pace as Barrichello and Räikkönen in front of him. He's 6th. And in 8th place now, after the pit stop of Takuma Sato, is Alonso. A long way back from the leaders, but again, starting to pick the pace up a little bit too. And Ted, I think, has some news for us on that.
Well, all good. It's good news for all you Renault fans and anyone watching at the factory at Enstone. He does not have any mechanical problems. I went into Renault, they said no, he's reported no problems. The car's okay, the tyres are good, they're getting better. But of course, he did stop for 13 seconds, so surely he doesn't have to stop again in this race. Given that fact, I don't think his lap times are that bad.
Well, he's certainly losing a lot per lap, though, so I'd be surprised if that strategy pays dividends, but we'll have a look. He's 67 seconds away from the lead and lapping very slowly. I can't see that looking special at this time.
Yeah, at the moment he's 30 seconds behind David Coulthard, which is about the sort of time you need to make a pit stop, so even with the guys in front of him all making a stop, he isn't going to jump ahead of them by virtue of the fact that he doesn't have to stop again. That's not going to work out for him. And as Martin said, the pace he's going at the moment is simply not fast enough in order to take advantage of that and to eat into Coulthard's advantage. Talking of eating into advantages, look at that, 3.6 seconds now, the gap between Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya. Schumacher slow on that last lap, a 1:36.3 in respect to what he can do and what he has been doing, but Montoya turning the wick up once again, 35.5, but he's obviously lost some ground now. So the lap times are slightly all over the charts for Montoya, aren't they? The second time, certainly.
Yes, it looks like Michael made a mistake on the previous lap somewhere and we didn't see it on screen. And Montoya's done a similar thing this time. That's how hard they're pushing. I mean, these are blistering times they're doing here this afternoon. Stunning race pace. They're on lap 38. They're towards the end of lap 38. Montoya then has lost 0.6 in the middle sector of the lap, and in the distance then is Button and Raikkonen and Barrichello, a few seconds adrift of each other down the straight, mixed up with the back markers.
Yeah, Button's got 2 cars between himself and Kimi Raikkonen, and that can nicely be described as a cushion, I think. The car working very well. Listen to the Honda engine screaming down the pit lane, 195 miles an hour before we hit the brakes. About this point into the 50-mile-an-hour turn 1, and Jenson Button is hooked up and in the groove. 19,254 RPM from the Honda, and they really have taken strides forwards over the winter. The chassis designed by Jeff Willis at BAR is a peach. It's working very well with the Michelin tyres. Honda have invested a lot more money and a lot more commitment, and the net result is a package that really is working well at the moment as Coulthard pits from 7th place.
Yeah, great pictures we're seeing this year in Formula One from FOM TV, and watching Button really flying nicely this afternoon. He's lapping in the 135s, 3.3 seconds ahead of Raikkonen, who's just come into the back of your picture, and Barrichello similarly 5 seconds now behind Kimi Raikkonen in 5th place. So it's Coulthard then that's the first of the 3 stoppers this afternoon.
He has rejoined the racetrack. Fernando Alonso has just gone past us, so we don't know yet whether Alonso was close enough to nick that place off Coulthard, but I don't believe he was. I think Coulthard is still in 7th place and Alonso is still in 8th, so that tactic hasn't worked really for Renault. Into the pits though comes the man who can challenge Michael Schumacher for the race win today. This will be the 3rd and final stop for Juan Montoya. For the first time in this race he's coming in before Schumacher. Let's have a look how quickly the Williams boys do it.
Yes, remembering he was carrying about 0.2 of a second per lap more fuel in the first stages of the Grand Prix. And Louise is down with his teammate Ralf Schumacher.
I am indeed, Martin. A rare engine failure, I understand, Ralf. Whatever the cause, the end result is the same for you. No points in a frustrating afternoon.
Well, it was. I mean, the whole weekend went pretty well, even in qualifying. I missed a couple of turns, and then the start, I said, was reasonable. I had a problem with traffic, so I couldn't do anything with it. And then I touched Webber, and I think after that maybe something broke on my car. I had an incredible understeer, couldn't go anywhere. I mean, especially the second sector, as I'm sure you saw, was pretty understeery, and that's why I couldn't do anything.
Just tell us about that fight with Webber. It looked like a pretty tough battle. Was it fun?
Yeah, I mean, Mark was pretty aggressive today, and I guess it's coming from his frustrating start. I don't know, but we both tried it. I tried to avoid a collision, but Mark didn't give me any space, and that's when it happened.
Thanks, Ralf.
Well, the stewards haven't chosen to pull anybody in for that incident. I think you'd have to put it down to a racing situation. I think any of them were at fault. Mark was defending his piece of tarmac, and Ralph was trying to push him hard as Michael Schumacher then pits for the third time. He had a 7.6 second lead from Montoya. Montoya is still on his out lap, so Ferrari have responded to that early stop by Williams, and at the moment it looks good. Plenty of fuel going in, a pretty average and normal stop then for a three-stopper. Button pits too. Button pits from third place.
Remember what I said, though, about Montoya staying within touch of Michael Schumacher. There he is at the very top of your screens, Juan Montoya, as Schumacher feeds into traffic, which will be some relief to him to see one or two cars between himself and Juan Montoya that Montoya has to pass before he can even think about attacking the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. But it's in these early laps of the stint where Montoya is so strong.
Raikkonen pitting too, as is Jarno Trulli. One of the cars that Montoya's got to pass is Michael's teammate, Rubens Barrichello too. In fact, there then is Montoya, so he is going to have to push supremely hard in this final part of the Grand Prix. Ted.
Raikkonen was slow getting away after that pit stop, but the big news from down here at Renault, Martin, Jarno Trulli did not change his front tyres. It was a change of rears only. I mean, we know how good, this Renault is on its tyres, but wow, I'll be amazed if they can last all these laps in this heat.
Well, we'll find out. His car did seem well balanced. It was Alonso's car that had the horrible understeer, which gives you a much higher wear rate as the tyres scrub sideways across the racetrack. But Trulli has been the faster Renault driver this afternoon, no doubt about it. And Raikkonen then slowing. Raikkonen in the McLaren, and smoke coming out of the back. He was in third place, having just stopped Raikkonen out of the Grand Prix.
And Jenson Button currently lying in second place, having made 3 pit stops this afternoon, so he really is having a strong afternoon. But for the second Grand Prix in a row then, we see smoke coming out of the back of the McLaren Mercedes of championship hopeful Kimi Raikkonen, the man who was really hoping, after finishing within 2 points of Michael Schumacher in last year's World Championship, that this would be his year, but it's not working out for him in the early stages of the season. And yet another engine failure, whatever the cause may be, for Kimi Raikkonen. Ted, can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, well, I'm right down at McLaren. The head of Raikkonen's engineer, Mark Slade, dips on the pit wall. I'll tell you what happened in that pit stop, and I think this might be clutch-related rather than engine. He tried to get away. The chief mechanic had to hold him in position because 2 other cars were coming down. So he was starting to get away, then stopped. So there was a massive energy going through the clutch there. It might be clutch-related. Let's not think that it's engine just yet.
Yes, it certainly wasn't a lot of smoke, and it didn't appear it was sort of digesting its own engine oil. And Kimi, that's a reaction you have. You're hot, you're sweaty, the adrenaline's still pumping, and somebody tries to take charge of you. It's not a reasonable reaction, but I'm afraid it's a natural one.
On board with Montoya, that's Rubens Barrichello in front. He stands between this car and the lead of the Grand Prix. Montoya 5.7 seconds only behind race leader Juan Montoya. And I wonder also whether the fact that pit stops here in Malaysia, the temperatures go up about 20% apparently with the car stationary in the pit lane, and it's quite often that you see cars retiring shortly after pit stops. Happens very often. Lap 42 then of the Malaysian Grand Prix. Schumacher, Barrichello, Montoya, the top 3. Button is in 4th at the moment. 13 laps to go in the Malaysian Grand Prix from Sepang, just south of Kuala Lumpur. It's 34 degrees hot in the air temperature, 43 the track temperature. Really sweltering day, and frustrated in the cockpit of the Williams of Juan Montoya. Yeah, definitely after the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello has been holding him up for the last 2 laps. The tactics have worked out such that Montoya, when he made his stop, came out behind Rubens Barrichello, who's been playing a holding role really for Michael Schumacher. The gap was under 5 seconds before this happened, and now it's gone out to 9.1 seconds to Juan Montoya. But I think Barrichello is about to make his 3rd pit stop of the afternoon. There he goes into the pit lane. That means Montoya's got clear air, but he's also got nearly 10 seconds to make up with just 12 laps of this Grand Prix in which to do it, and that probably means it's advantage Michael Schumacher. So a critical role at a critical time played by Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, I think they were also in some traffic too, which cost them both time, but surely Rubens was not in any particular hurry with his teammate's main contender locked in behind him. The way the traffic played out, Schumacher's lead 9.6 seconds. Where will Barrichello feed back in? It's at least behind Trulli, isn't it? Who's that just gone through? No, it's a Menard, isn't it? So we'll have to wait and see where he fed back in. We can't tell from this picture. But Montoya then also, I wonder if he's now sensed he can't make the difference in these last few laps, James, because his pace, he wasn't exactly hustling Barrichello, was he either?
It's interesting, we've seen that before, haven't we? The spirit broken a little bit with a bit of bad luck. We saw it at Monza last year. Do you remember when Montoya got held up by Frentzen? He was having a splendid battle with Michael Schumacher for the lead, never more than a couple of seconds apart, and he lost time behind Frentzen. Suddenly the fight went out of Montoya, and I wonder if we're seeing a little bit of a repeat of that now. His lap times are good. He's into the 1:36.4s again, so that's all good news, but he's half a second a lap slower than Michael Schumacher, and that margin, which was, you could almost touch it, you could almost feel the back of the Ferrari. Now it's the length of that long straightaway. But the good news anyway for the Brits watching us back home in the UK is that Jenson Button is still in 3rd place, still going very strongly indeed. Rubens Barrichello, having just made that stop, has come in behind Button on the racetrack, we believe. Yeah,
Jenson Button almost didn't say it, but looking very solid for his first podium. Coulthard, as are many of them now, backed off into the 37s. 1:37. Montoya has got on with it now. Barrichello has pitted. But so it's Michael Schumacher, 9.2 ahead of Montoya. Jenson Button is 9 seconds behind Montoya. Barrichello has fed back in, we think, in 4th place, ahead of Jarno Trulli. And Trulli remains ahead of Coulthard by 7 seconds. Alonso still relatively slow in 7th, and Sato taking the final championship point at the moment.
So Montoya again faster than Michael Schumacher on the racetrack. The fight has not gone out of the Colombian. He certainly reminds me of Nigel Mansell. Whenever he's out there in a car and there's still some race to be had, he will still push as hard as he possibly can. Always worth watching. Juan Montoya. We're on board though with David Coulthard. Nice shot of the steering wheel.
Who just did a 1:42 and is now only 8.6 seconds ahead of Alonso. So, and this is why he ran wide in turn, I think that's 7 and 8 down there. So that is why Coulthard has lost so much time, an error somewhere out on the racetrack.
Did you see how much dirt there was on the outside of that corner? That's what they call the marbles. It's the bits of rubber, isn't it, Martin, that come off the tyres, and they get mixed in with the dirt, and they really do make a very ungrippy cocktail. That looks like, is it a Toyota going slowly?
Looks like it, doesn't it?
It's Panis, I believe. There's D'Amato at the bottom of frame, and here's the BAR going through the shot. And that is indeed Olivier Panis, possibly just getting out of the way of... no, he's coming into the pits.
The Toyotas are 10th and 11th as Panis pits. So Michael Schumacher then 9.3 ahead. Button 3rd, Barrichello 4th, Trulli 5th, Coulthard 6th.
Yeah, Panis coming into the pit lane. Alonso is 7th. Oh, it's a drive-through penalty. Is it? No, it's not a drive-through penalty. A team obviously weren't ready for it. There's nothing on the notice from race control to say that he had a drive-through penalty. So a bit of a weird moment there for the Toyota of Olivier Panis. With 10 laps to go in this 56-lap Grand Prix, and Montoya has not given up yet. Closing stages of the Malaysian Grand Prix, 8 laps to go. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you in Sepang, Malaysia. Some concern on the wall of BAR because Jenson Button's pace has dropped off a little bit, and certainly Rubens Barrichello is picking up the pace. He's just 8.1 seconds behind the BAR of Jenson Button with 8 laps to go, and currently taking a second a lap out of him, so he will catch him if Jenson is unable to respond. But a very strange moment, Martin, just happened with the Toyota team, where Olivier Panis came into the pit lane and the team obviously weren't quite ready for him.
Well, I think it was a false call, or maybe they'd asked him to move over and let Damata through. They were pretty close on the racetrack. Panis came down the pit lane for his 4th time this afternoon and gave a rather international sign to his own team bosses sitting on the pit wall, which will not endear him to them at all. Michael Schumacher then in your picture, 9.9 seconds clear, as he has had all afternoon, just about got the measure of Juan Pablo Montoya in 2nd, Button in 3rd, but as James pointed out, at the pace that they're doing, Button will come under pressure from 4th place man Barrichello before the end of the Grand Prix. That's a touch of deja vu, isn't it? Jenson really going to have to drive for that podium slot, no doubt about it. He's got to find some pace from somewhere.
And talk about kicking a man when he's down. There's now a drive-through time penalty for car 17 for speeding in the pit lane. Who was that? Olivier Panis. A pointless visit to the pits is rewarded with a speeding fine, and he's going to have to do it all over again. But Jenson Button is the story, definitely, in the closing stage of this Grand Prix. Montoya is still pushing hard, but he cannot eat into the advantage of Michael Schumacher like he was doing earlier in the Grand Prix. At one stage, we saw him within 3.5 seconds of the Ferrari, and it all looked set up for a good battle. Then a little traffic and a little teammate interference from Rubens Barrichello ensured that Montoya dropped back, and he is now 10 seconds behind Michael Schumacher as Panis comes through again. I wonder if he'll wave this time again to his pit crew like he did last time. There will be a lot of Gallic frustration inside the cockpit of that Toyota.
I don't think it's a smart thing to do that one again. No, it's a shake of the head though, that'll do. That still tells them what he thinks about them, and just a little Gallic, just a shake of the head, but without the international sign to go with it. And Panis then back out on the race, so that's his 5th run down the pit lane today. He'll know it quite well soon. And Montoya then has now settled for 2nd. Has Button still got the measure of 3rd. Barrichello now just 7.2 behind him, and no other really close battles on the racetrack of significance. It's just a question of Barrichello in the 2nd Ferrari chasing Jenson Button down. It's quite a gap though, still 7.2. But you have to say once again, James, we've lost a McLaren, we've lost a Williams through retirements, Raikkonen and Ralf Schumacher. We haven't lost a Ferrari. They do seem peerless in their reliability, which under the current regulations in Formula One, reliability is everything, particularly when it comes to point scoring. Remember, Michael Schumacher had, I think, 8 points after 3 Grand Prix last year. He's going to go home this afternoon, it looks like, with 20 already from just the 2.
Yep, car off track there. Looks like Bruni in the Minardi Cosworth, who is currently down in 15th place. Talking about reliability, I mean, the platform for Schumacher and Ferrari's success undoubtedly over the last 5 years has been the reliability, and witnessed by the fact that he's the only man who's finished all of the 5 Malaysian Grand Prix to date. Everybody else that's run here has had some sort of retirement at some stage, and it's quite remarkable. Schumacher on course at the moment for his 3rd win in 6 appearances in Malaysia. 4 times he has sat on pole position here, but if Melbourne 2 weeks ago was a real show of strength by the Ferrari team, and today has seen a very different picture, I think, in Formula One, with certainly the Williams of Juan Montoya able to live with the pace of the Ferraris, and that's tremendously encouraging for Bahrain in 2 weeks' time, where again we expect it to be very warm and going into the European summer as well. So looks like we've got a fight on our hands for the World Championship. Montoya definitely took the fight to Ferrari today, and a word for Jenson Button as well, because his lap times have been comparable to those of the front runners. He's 20 seconds behind at the end of the Grand Prix, but he really has driven very well. So BAR not to be discounted, and Rubens Barrichello is behind him after all, and he's driving a Ferrari. Yep,
and Jenson has found half second a lap. He's down in the low 1 minute 36, as Barrichello's still faster but Jensen has stopped a lot of the rot, and the gap, he's just had 2 good laps, and the gap remains at 6.8 seconds, so he has found a bit of extra speed. Patrick Head said to me at Williams on the start line, we're confident later on in the season we can improve significantly and challenge Ferrari. We don't think we can do it this afternoon. Well, you have to say Montoya's not been too far adrift. Good news for Formula One, as the BAR crew there are relaxing as much as they can. They've still got 2 cars in the points. Button 3rd and Sato in 8th.
And spare a thought for that pit crew down there with their white and black overalls on, 3 layers of Nomex underwear, fireproof stuff, helmets, visors, all heavy equipment that they've got to wear. They've got to work hard down there in 57% humidity and 35 degrees the air temperature. Even at the height of the British summer last year, it didn't get much hotter than that, and it's been that way all throughout this weekend. And those guys really do deserve a nice cold beer at the end of today. I'm sure they'll have a few if Jenson Button does come through and get his first podium in 68 Grand Prix worth of trying.
They'll all be mighty relieved, though, that it has been cooler today than at any other time since we've been here, hasn't it? And the track is a full 11 degrees centigrade cooler than it was during qualifying. Jensen in the background then, and there is the challenging Ferrari. It was 6.8 seconds, as I told you. It is now 6.1, but he's got enough time, I think. He's got enough space, rather, with the laps available. Just 4 laps then.
Well, Rubens Barrichello choosing this weekend to say, I know this, everyone says this is Michael Schumacher's team, but I'm here to prove that that is wrong. I feel good, I feel confident, I can win the World Championship this year, but you have to say, from the moment the cars hit the racetrack, Michael Schumacher has been by far the faster of the 2 Ferraris. Barrichello gambled on a different strategy, and it didn't really work out for him yesterday. Here's Jarno Trulli, mesmerisingly quick in the first half of the Grand Prix. Renault played a bit of a gamble with the strategy in the pit stops, fueled Trulli quite heavily, and he's ended up more or less where he started, in 5th place behind Rubens Barrichello, but quite a long way behind Barrichello. He's 20 seconds now behind the Ferrari. David Coulthard, a solid day for him at the office. 6th is worth 3 points for him, but he's a full minute behind the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher after 52 laps, and that's over a second a lap again for the McLaren. His teammate Kimi Raikkonen we saw retiring with what looked like an engine failure. We've yet to have that confirmed by Mercedes-Benz. And Alonso and Sato, the last of the 2 points paying positions, both men starting from the back of the grid this afternoon.
Tell you what, Trulli's neck is going. If you watch him, he's struggling to keep it where it needs to be in the fast corners. No! That is Sato, isn't it? It's Sato's BAR Honda, was in 8th, hasn't got the reflective tape on the camera, so it's not Button. And Sato out of the Grand Prix then on lap 54 of 56.
And the alarm bells will be ringing at Jenson Buttonville. Ted Kravitz is down in the BAR garage. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, I've just left that garage, James. I left it because they were all so calm. The pit crew amazingly calm. I'll go back, find out what's happened to Takuma Sato. They're amazingly calm. The guy who was most nervous, let me tell you, was John Button, Jensen's dad. BAR, of course, have had podiums before. The last was Germany 2001 with Jacques Villeneuve. They've only got a few laps to go. Can the car hold out?
Well, can it indeed? As you say, Ted, over 2 years since the BAR team have had a podium, and Jenson Button's never had one. There you can see what happened to Takuma Sato.
Yeah, and his teammate Button cannot afford to coast and save his engine to the end of the Grand Prix. Barrichello now just 5.4 seconds adrift and catching at best part of a second a lap. So it's going to be nip and tuck at the end, but it looks like Jenson's got enough in hand to me.
Well, with 3 laps to go out of the 56 at the start, the yellow band there under the lap counter, 2 laps to go now, indicates that there is a car in a stricken zone, which of course is Sato being recovered, and so that area has a yellow flag caution. You're not allowed to overtake in the zone where Sato's car is broken down. There is second place man Juan Montoya. The pace has eased off now. The battle is over between Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya. It lasted for a long, long time in this Grand Prix, and it gives tremendous encouragement to lovers of Formula One that this championship will be contested between BMW, Williams and Ferrari, if not by McLaren, who will soon join the battle. I've no doubt about that at all once they start to get some speed out of their car.
Button, the gap 3.7. Button had to pass Massa in the Sauber last time. It's a Ferrari engine car. I don't expect it'll be getting in Barrichello's way too much when he comes up behind it. But Button now just 3.7 ahead of Barrichello then.
Well, it's been an exciting Grand Prix right from the word go when Mark Webber failed to get off the start line. Terrific scrap between Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya, who jumped into second place at the start. We saw a little pattern emerging after the first and second pit stops, whereby Schumacher had to be very careful on his Bridgestone tyres in the initial phases of the stint. But Montoya was much harder on his Michelins and was able to close the gap up. First time round, Schumacher then elongated it again. Second time round, he couldn't do that. Montoya got very, very close indeed, but a mixture of traffic and Ferrari tactics saw to the challenge of Juan Montoya, and Schumacher able to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief and just sit on a cushion, which he's extended up to about 12 seconds now. He's heading into the last lap to make it 2 Grand Prix wins out of 2 at the start of the 2004 championship.
Now look in the background here, there's Button coming into view, and there is Rubens Barrichello with 1 lap to go. They've cleared all the back markers. Button surely has his first ever podium in his pocket. 2.5 seconds is the gap. He'll not lose that in the last lap unless he makes a mistake, but he certainly can't back off. Michael Schumacher was a full 10.6 in the lead despite a cruisy lap in the 1:39s, and he's still cruising on this last lap, just off the throttle completely where he'd normally be virtually full power.
Well, Jenson Button's got the jet, he's got the boat, he's got the pop star girlfriend, but he has not until now had the podium that goes with being a top name in Grand Prix racing. He's about 2 miles away from getting that podium. But first we have the small matter of Michael Schumacher to come through and collect win number 72 of his extraordinary Grand Prix career. We'll soon be celebrating 200 Grand Prix starts for Michael Schumacher in 4 races' time, and he's won 72 of them. Absolutely remarkable record, and it's his 3rd win in Malaysia coming up. He's backing right off, keeping us all waiting. Good crowd here today in Malaysia. They've seen a decent race as well. Lots to go on, lots of pit stops, lots of action, some good passing, particularly between Ralf Schumacher and Mark Webber. Lots of action, but at the end of it all, the result many expected, but not necessarily the way they expected it to come. Michael Schumacher wins in Malaysia, but Juan Montoya really gave him a run for his money this afternoon. And there is Jenson Button from Frome in Somerset. He joins the elite group to stand on a podium where you, Martin, have stood yourself many times in your Grand Prix career. Tell us what it feels like to be Jenson Button now, your first podium in Formula 1.
Yeah, I've stood up there 10 times, but the first is the most important. For me, it was the podium used to be a much smaller event back in those days than it is now. It's such a glorious moment, but whenever you're in the top 3 of an international world-class motor race, it is something very significant. The void between 4th and 3rd is just another planet, and he'll be so delighted, and it's well deserved too, I would say. He deserved that long before now, actually. He's been so unlucky not to be up on the podium before now.
Well, the man who's done so much to get Jenson Button up to Formula 1, who saw him through his karting days, who's been with him at every one of those 68 Grand Prix, just waiting for this to happen, is his father, John Button. And Louise, I guess he must be in tears right now.
I am sure he is. At the moment, I'm stood with David Richards, who has an enormous, great big grin on his face. David, I mean, you're the man who brought Jenson to the team. He's delivered for you today, hasn't he?
He's done a superb job. One of the toughest races of the year, the hottest race of the year, and he's just driven absolutely perfectly. So it's a great day for him. His first podium, well deserved.
And I mean, you're on the same lap as Michael Schumacher. You've got a Ferrari behind you. What a great result for the team overall.
It's a good start. We're really we've got to keep working at it now.
Well done, David.
Thank you.
Well done indeed to the BAR team. As he said, we've got to keep working at it now. They've got the podium that they wanted. It's been a couple of years since BAR have been up there with Jacques Villeneuve. Remember him? He used to drive for the BAR team. Well, now the team leader is Jenson Button, and he has done a splendid job today. I always ask you for your driver of the day. I'm going to tell you who I think my driver of the day is, and that is Jenson Button, and I'm very pleased for him. But give us the racing driver's analysis. Who did the best job today?
Technically speaking, I mean, there are 3 or 4 drivers, I think, who did an excellent job today. Michael Schumacher, really a very mature performance at the front. He had that under control. The tricky conditions at the beginning, Montoya never let go at all. I agree with you, though, it's got to be Jenson Button for keeping them well in view. You could see the pair of them as he crossed the line, and a very mature performance by him. But I have to say, some great drives out there this afternoon. Some big questions to be asked by Renault. Where were they at the end? They were 5th and 7th and a long way off the pace. And McLaren too. Now only 4 World Championship points from 2 Grand Prix.
Well, I was told that Louise was with John Button before. In fact, it was Dave Richards we heard from. This time she is with the man who steered Jenson all this way and who must be a very, very happy man now.
I'm sure he is, James. He actually looks in a bit of a state of shock.
Yeah, I am rather. We're supposed to be dashing off to the airport to get the plane in about an hour's time, but I don't think we're going to be doing it somehow.
You can certainly cancel that one. I mean, tell us what this is going to mean for Jenson.
Well, I mean, this year, winter testing, the first race, it proved how good the car was, how good the team are. I'm sure better things are going to come. There's lots of developments, fantastic, and this is going to lift the team yet again. It's fantastic.
And such a good, strong drive by him as well.
Yeah, it wasn't a lucky 3rd place. He really earned it, and the speed was in the car, definitely. Just watching all the split times, it was...
Well done. We'll see you in the bar later.
Yes, definitely.
John Button there, one of the great characters of the Formula One paddock. He certainly enjoys himself. He was hanging out with Johnny Rotten at the American Grand Prix last year in Indianapolis, and he matched him drink for drink in the nightclubs and had a very, very good time. I think he went to bed after the former lead singer of the Sex Pistols. Button then 4th in the World Championship. This man, though, is still very much in contention, isn't he? Juan Montoya took the fight to Schumacher today, but it's 2 out of 2 for the reigning world champion. Yes, gets just as much pleasure out of win 72 in his career as win number 1, because he had to work for that one, didn't he, Martin? He really did have to work for this one today.
Yeah, that's for sure. It wasn't a walk in the park as it was in Melbourne at all. He didn't have his teammate to help him out because Rubens was on the wrong tyres. He chose the harder compound tyre. Didn't work in the cooler conditions today compared to qualifying. Michael, despite it being his 72nd win, seems just as excited as ever. He'll go and thank everybody, particularly first there, Ross Brawn. So Massa finished 8th. He benefited from Sato dropping out of the Grand Prix for Sauber, and I think that's a well-deserved point too. He's really done well this weekend, I think, Massa. But really, Coulthard down in 6th, Raikkonen out of the race. There's Jenson Button, and he's going to savour this moment for the rest of his life.
And a very, very happy BAR team, and soak up the moment, gents. Yes. Lovely to see the Union Jack there once again on the podium. David Coulthard has had to carry it on his own, really, for the last few years since Damon Hill left Formula One. And a good crowd here in Malaysia today. It's election day, would you believe? General election day here in Malaysia. So they were a bit worried that that might distract people from coming to the race. But look at they've packed him in, and they are very enthusiastic about their racing down here in Southeast Asia. A lot of talk that Bernie Eccleston is looking at leading us down here a bit more often in future. Korea would like to have a race, I believe. India too would like to have a race. Well, that remains to be seen whether that will happen. But the Malaysian Grand Prix, this majestic track with a glorious grandstand designed to look like a banana leaf. We've had some eventful Grand Prix here over the years, haven't we? Remember the one where Schumacher moved over to let Eddie Irvine through to win? Schumacher just congratulating Button there. He knows how much it means. Sweet moment. Don't forget, Button used to race for the Williams team there, so congratulations from them. And he will have a big, big smile on his face when they get up on the podium. But look at Schumacher, 56 laps in the sweltering heat, 35 years of age, and he doesn't show any stress at all.
68th Grand Prix for Jenson Button then. Crucially, as we said, the first podium. Look at Michael, it's incredible, pumped, isn't it? It's just, he is so excited, it's incredible. He said, I've got nothing left to win, I'm under no pressure, doesn't matter what happens. Well, you wouldn't think that, would you, looking at him? And, well, his lap in qualifying yesterday was something quite exceptional. His own words, unusually for him, were, that was a mind-blowing lap. And certainly 20 points out of 20 for the first 2 Grand Prix, he's going to take some stopping, isn't he?
Win number 168 for the Ferrari team then. And another trophy to go in the cabinet of Michael Schumacher, presented by the Prime Minister, Abdullah Ahmad. Beautiful trophy, reflecting the grandstand here at Sepang. Ross Brawn, the brains behind all but a very few of Michael Schumacher's race wins. And Juan Montoya trying hard, but I think the expression says it all. Be interesting to see what he says in the press conference after the race about the moment when traffic and Rubens Barrichello came in the way of his charge. Plenty of Colombians here making the long trip, and a moment we've all looked forward to for a long time. And the crowd, I have to say here, giving him the biggest cheer of all. Jenson Button. Great day. So we go into new pastures in 2 weeks' time in Bahrain. Another hot race, hopefully another close one too. This was a day though when Montoya charged, Button came of age, and Schumacher shone in the heat of Malaysia.